All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Just as a quick reminder, this webinar will be recorded. And if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to type them into the question box and I will answer them at the end of the webinar. Just some housekeeping before we get started. Please note that these webinars are intended for educational purposes only. While we hope that you learn new information that can help in your day-to-day work activities, the trainers presenting these webinars are not attorneys. Therefore, the information provided therein and during the Q&A session should not be construed as legal advice. Well, now that we got that out of the way, good afternoon. My name is Brianna Grimes, and we're going to be talking about a webinar titled How to Counteract Employee Burnout, and this is presented to you by Pay Entry. I'm really excited to be your trainer today and to talk about this very important topic. So today we're going to be talking about what is employee burnout, what does it look like, who are the most at risk, how to address it, ways to counteract it, and then we will conclude with a Q&A session at the very end. So I am sure that a lot of you have had moments in your career where you felt burnt out from work, but the term employee burnout actually has a formal definition, a way of measuring it, and it's studied as a mental health issue because of its effects on the person experiencing it. So let's start by defining what employee burnout is. It is essentially work-related stress that causes a state of physical or emotional exhaustion that also involves a sense of reduced accomplishment and loss of personal identity. This isn't just about having a rough day or having too much to do at work. This is a state of being where an employee is really mentally or physically suffering from stress. Additionally, it can be further exacerbated by an overall lack of support from leadership and a lack of resources to do their job effectively. So if you work in an organization that expects your team to do a lot with a little all the time, you have a very high chance of employee burnout occurring. There are many key signs to employee burnout, and we will go over each of them. These are key signs to look for as managers, but not only as managers. It's a great idea to have your teams look out for each other. If they notice one of their teammates acting weird or showing any signs that we're going to talk about, it is important that they let you know so you can do something about it. Here are the most common signs of employee burnout. Disengagement or withdrawing. When employees do this, they may not want to attend company events or participate in activities. They may speak up less in team meetings, seem uninterested in manager one-on-ones, and volunteer for less responsibilities with team projects. They may appear demoralized, worried, or stressed all the time. Their overall behavior may seem frazzled or hopeless, maybe panicky, or filled with anxiety. They may look tired, like they haven't slept. They may stop taking care of themselves, and they might not even be presentable as you're used to seeing them. They will perpetuate negativity at work. Even if they were never an overly positive person before, they will still have taken on a very negative outlook and seem hopeless, and it's very obvious to those who know them. They may try to give up on projects sooner or get really frustrated when something goes wrong instead of trying to solve the problem. It may even get to the point where they have frequent unplanned absences. Think of it like the kids who ditch school because they were not challenged or engaged. They want to do something that makes them feel that they have value or that gives them purpose. Our employees are the same way. If they don't enjoy coming to work, they will find excuses not to. And they may be genuinely sick often as well. The mental and physical strain that burnout can put on a body can actually cause chronic physical illness, which also causes the employee to miss a lot of work. And finally, if these signs are not addressed and a conversation is not had, this eventually leads to this person leaving your company for another opportunity. The grass is always greener in the eyes of an employee who is burned out, and at that point, they have nothing to lose, so leaving is a very viable option. And we all know that turnover is very costly to organizations. Now, all these signs and ultimately effects of employee burnout are costly to you and your organization. Turnover is expensive, especially the more niche market that you're in. Employees being absent all the time or even disengaging other employees with their negativity can be costly to your productivity in the long run. There are some employee groups that are more at risk for burnout than others. Primarily, they're employees who have the most emphasis on productivity, attendance, or autonomy in their jobs. Here are a few examples of employees that fall into these categories. Sales staff. Their jobs are 100% based on productivity all the time. Not only that, but there is a constant pressure to make quotas, especially those that are commission based. They can't afford to slack off and not achieve. But after a while, they can burn out easily without a break from the stress. Remote employees. We're seeing this a lot more now because of COVID-19 and the amount of employees that are working from home. In fact, there are studies going on pertaining to what experts are calling Zoom overload, which is the overload of virtual meetings, webinars, PowerPoints, and the technical issues that are often associated with them. Working remotely can also be very lonely, and organizations need to make the extra effort to make everyone feel engaged and a part of the team. Working remotely has great results on productivity and flexibility, but it can increase the rate of burnout by almost 40% if it's not managed carefully. Time-sensitive roles. These are employees like warehouse workers and truck drivers or manufacturers that have time-related deadlines to achieve. This may cause workers like this to work extra hours to get the job done, even at the cost of their health or safety. It is important for employers to step in and ensure that employees are not sacrificing safety for their projects. Departments of one. These are roles in small to medium-sized businesses that are running an entire department by themselves. For example, it could be the HR generalist that is running payroll, handling EEO-1 filing, ACA forms, open enrollment, performance management, workers' comp, and everything in between, but they're only one person. Situations like this cause added stress when there are a lot of different tasks, sometimes happening all simultaneously, and there's only one person who knows how to do it. They tend to avoid taking long vacations, or they work on their vacations because they don't want to come back to a lot of work or the work done incorrectly. They're often afraid to ask for an additional hire on their team because it may be perceived that they could not handle it and that they let their employer down. These types of department structures can be dangerous and have very high turnover if companies are not careful. Lastly, organizations that have very strict attendance are also highly at risk of employee burnout. Overly strict attendance policies often make employees feel bad for taking any time off, whether it's for a doctor's appointment or a vacation, especially if attendance becomes a measure of productivity. It is a very old notion that in order to be a productive worker, you have to work 8 hours a day. There are numerous other countries that have shorter workdays than the US, and they actually produce more per person per hour than we do working our 8 to 12-hour average days in America. So the idea that attendance is directly linked to an employee's ability to perform can actually add extra pressure and lead to burnout faster. All right, so we've looked at what burnout is and who are the most at risk. So now let's answer the question of how can you address it when you see an employee on this path? Well, the first thing, and really the most important thing that all organizations should be practicing is the idea of put your people first. Your employees are absolutely useless to you if they're sick, disengaged, burned out, lacking focus, overwhelmed, or actively looking to get away from your organization. All of these situations are less likely if you make it a habit of putting them first above productivity or blanket rules. Encourage that they engage in self-care and can come to their managers if they need to take a personal day or they need to remove some work from their plate. As leaders in the organization, we have to verbalize this culture so they know that it's okay and they don't have to feel guilty for taking care of themselves. The second thing you can do is ensure you're properly training your employees. Remember how I said earlier that burnout is exacerbated by lack of resources and support? Well, training is a resource. They need to be trained so they know how to do their job. Even if someone has been in their career for 10 plus years, they still need to understand your IT infrastructure, policies, expectations, HRIS system, data systems, all the things that make your company unique. They still need to be trained. Proper training is the best way to set up your employees for success. Another thing that you can do is set expectations. This is especially important for remote workers. Let them know what productivity level is expected, what communication channels are expected, and that they can clock out at the end of their day. Just because their office is in their home does not mean they need to be available 24/7. Engagement initiatives should be a huge focus for your company. If you have a lot of remote workers, or your industry is one that tends to experience a lot of burnout or turnover, engagement initiatives can be things that dress up days, contests, spirit weeks during the kickoff of your busy season, maybe raffles or sales contests, happy hours. The sky is the limit. Ideally, the purpose behind these initiatives is to make sure your employees have the opportunity to engage their teams outside of normal work activities. Not only does this allow them to get to know their coworkers, but it also allows managers a way to get to know their teams and identify ways to counteract burnout that is specific to their team's needs. You can also set up a reward system. It does not have to be anything formal, but if you want to set up bonuses or a point system where managers and team members can reward each other for a good attitude or being positive or a team player, then that is an option as well. But if you want a less formal system and a less expensive system, you can empower managers to give employees on the spot rewards for doing a great job and maintaining a great attitude. Rewards can be gift cards to Starbucks or Chipotle. They can be allowing someone to leave work early for the day without reducing their pay. Rewards can also be praise boards, where employees can nominate team members or write praise for them, and it's read out loud weekly at the team meetings. Small things like this make employees feel appreciated and special, and this will help counteract burnout and show that management really cares about them. The key to counteracting employee burnout also lies in knowing your employees, getting to know them and their situation so you can tailor your rewards, praise, expectations, and support to that specific person. For example, I'm currently in grad school and in the process of buying a house. Both of those activities take up a lot of time. My boss understands that on some days she needs to let me take off a little early, and she'll ask about my test schedules, and she's flexible with me if I need to take time in the morning to study or take an exam during my lunch hour. The added personalized touch or flexibility and understanding is amazing. It makes me feel like I'm valued at this company. As a result, I continue to work hard and deliver on what is asked of me because I want to repay her kindness and the fact that she's being flexible. So I go above and beyond on my end of the deal to make sure that my work is done. Having that personalized touch and really knowing what your employees are dealing with at home will help you be more compassionate and flexible while counteracting burnout and retaining your human capital. So, those are all great techniques to prevent employee burnout or to turn it around if that person is slowly headed on that path. But what if they are in full-fledged burnout mode? They're negative, they're rude, they're missing work, they seem hopeless and lacking an overall luster for life. Well, here are the steps that we suggest you take when an employee is in full burnout mode. Step 1. Start with a seek to understand conversation. As their manager, set up a time to chat, or you can do it during their next one-on-one and try to find out what's going on. You can say things like, Sally, lately you've seemed a little off to your team and to me. You're not as positive and bubbly as you used to be. What's going on? Is there something I can do to help? Make sure the conversation is not disciplinary in nature or accusatory in any way. The tone should remain compassionate with a level of genuine concern for the employee and their well-being. Step 2, action plan. If the employee is willing to share what is going on with them, help them develop an action plan. If they're overwhelmed with work, ask what can be removed from their plate or help them set up a timeline and prioritize their projects appropriately. Sometimes employees just need help getting organized so they know what to focus on. If there's something going on at home or with their health, offer your employees EAP program if you have one, and FMLA if they're eligible. If they're not eligible for FMLA and they do have a medical issue, be sure to start the interactive ADA process with them. This is required federally and all employees are eligible for it. Overall, you need to be there to support them and continue asking, how can I help you succeed? Step 3, accountability. Hold them accountable to the action plan you create together. If you help them prioritize and set deadlines, follow up on those deadlines and make sure they are using the resources available to manage their stress and workload. If they're dealing with personal stuff, check in with them and see how they're doing. Remember that you cannot force an employee to use the EAP, FMLA, or ADA channels available to them. You can provide the resources, but if they choose not to use them, that is their choice to make. However, you can do things like ask if their workload is manageable, Ask if they need to take any time off to handle their personal life. Maintaining that constant communication is key to being able to execute the next step. Step 4, crossroads. At this point, the employee is either too far gone and will refuse to talk to you, share information of any kind, or work towards improvement. Or they will take the action plan seriously, use the resources you gave them, and slowly return back to their old selves. At this point, you need to evaluate which path they have chosen before moving on to the final step. Step 5 is disciplinary actions or recovery. If the employee chooses not to engage, talk, or act towards making the situation better and their work performance or attendance is suffering, it's time to start planning on exiting them out of the organization through disciplinary action in line with either their poor performance or attendance based on your company policies. Remember, you can't fire someone for being disengaged, but if it's affecting their performance or their attendance, you need to have a business-based reason as to why you're putting them on a disciplinary action plan. If the employee is engaging, using their resources, talking to you consistently, and slowly getting better, or at least not getting worse, then they're on the road to recovery and will be back to being a contributing member of your team. Make sure you express your appreciation for them taking these steps and reward them for good behaviors and success going forward. The key thing to remember here is that you can only offer support, assistance, and resources. You cannot do the work for them. You cannot force them to talk to you, to manage their workload, or even for them to use resources like FMLA or EAP. They must choose it for themselves. But if you're offering the support and constant communication, then there is significantly reduced liability on your end if this process does end in termination. All right, well, I hope you all enjoyed the presentation and got some really good nuggets of information out of it. Let me see if we have any questions at this time. All right, it doesn't look like we have any questions, but thank you all for your time today. I hope you learned a lot of great information from today's presentation. Remember, these presentations are recorded and they will be available for you to watch at any time on our website. Just go to webinars and go to previous webinars and the recording will be there. Also, yes, I can send you the PowerPoint if you want to shoot me an email at bgrimes@payentry.com. If you'd like a copy of the PowerPoint, I'd be more than happy to send it to you. All right, y'all have a great rest of your day.